Hey, Spectrum on Demon Slides, it's me, Spectrum here. Comes with in this video. I am going to be doing game characters as gods, and this is going to be a little interesting because I never used this format, or something like, I never used an idea like this. So I'm going to be going and revealing some lore for this world. So without further ado, let's roll intro, and let's get into the video, and let's go. Like and subscribe if you enjoy this video. Okay, last time I was talking about some gods, and I said that I'll talk about some others next time. Well, that'll be the next time I talk about anime gods, because from my research, it turns out that this planet of ours is actually hundreds, if not millions of years old. And these gods that are categorized in different categories. There's anime gods, and then there's mythological gods, and now there's game gods. First one is a god that is based off the main character from, the player character, from a game that was known as Paint the Town Red. This one is he's known as Crimson Painter, major god of entertainment, fun, and lethal hits. Or more like lethal. The files I differentiate, but most of it refer to lethal. Pretty much anything lethal it's referring to. Minor god of murder, massacres, smite, shockwaves, multiple forms, berserkers, blood, weapons, fights, and killing. His clothing is, he has blank eyes, doesn't have any pupils, and he's most known to appear in clothing covered in blood at times. Sometimes with only a few smidges of blood here and there, or fully drenched, but most commonly with at least one or two splatters. And this god was formed after so many people played Paint the Town Red, after watching some YouTubers play it. Don't know the YouTuber's name, or what even YouTube is. But judging by the time period, something happened to that Earth. Something happened to Earth a few years ago that put us all back into the Stone Age. And now we're just bringing back up to here and relearning everything here. But he's known as a Crimson Painter because of the fact that when he kills people, it's always in a colorful manner. Like the entire white room could be covered in blood by the time he's done. And sometimes it's only one or two opponents, and sometimes it's hundreds. Sometimes he would lose, sometimes he would win, but every single time he's always had fun. Is what it says. What I mean by that is some gods have something like a poem you have to say in order to start praying to them. He might lose, he might win, but every time he fights, he would have fun. He might kill, he might scream, he might die, but he's always real, and there he is. It's something like that, but I can't get my hands on the real form of it. I can only tell y'all real things, because I do not want to bring that, close to it anyways. I don't want to bring that god here, because that sounds pretty brutal. Anyways, let's get to the next one, shall we? Now for the next one, I'm going to be talking about a creature from a game that was known as Minecraft. And from what I can tell, it's a sandbox game. Well, he has something similar. But this god, creeper, major god of explosions, minor god of stealth and plants. Namely plants because of the fact that these creatures don't really appear to be, how do you say, it's hard to say, but like mammals. their colors are that are reminiscent of plants. And from what I've seen, this guy has appeared a few times. He's mostly appeared in front of people that really like making explosions. He's also associated with fireworks. This god has multiple green stripes, and his skin is that of a dark green color. He is pretty powerful, and whenever he goes, when he appears or when he disappears, there's always an explosion, always differentiating in size. But if you take him off, he would blow you up. He always has an explosion at the ready, and sometimes if he's in a big jam, he will literally cause himself to self-destruct. But due to being a god, he has the ability to regenerate pretty rapidly. But he also has the ability to, like most gods, to have multiple iterations of himself. He mostly appears as this four-legged, 2-meter tall creature with a head that makes a hissing noise. From what I've learned, that is what the creatures used to look like in the game known as Minecraft. Now, he is more or less just a god, but nowadays, he's more or less just someone you pray to for hoping the explosion goes right, or something like that. But his blessing is something pretty interesting. His blessing would give you control over plants. And trust me, having control over plants in this day and age is pretty interesting. But the downside of that blessing is the fact that the plants always explode whenever you want them to. You might summon a plant and a few years later, think, what would happen if the plants blew up? And they would blow up. No matter the time difference, you just gotta think plants and blow up. Or boom around the plants. You have to be within 5 feet of the plants, though. I've heard about a guy who had that blessing. He was in the hospital for a few weeks, dealing with severe burns from an explosion from a plant that he had in his room and forgot about his blessing. So, let's get to the next one, shall we? This third one, though, is more powerful and is by far the most powerful god I've ever seen. He's a unique case by far. He used to be a god, lost his power, but then became a new god. Name Aether. Major god of elements and power, minor god of swords, fighting, adventure, friends, and family. He's mostly known as this god of elements, and when you pray to him, you can usually gain a different element, or on very rare occasions, gain control over all elements. But Aether is from a game that was known as Genshin Impact, and funny enough, nowadays, his adventure has actually taken place in this in this world. And it appears that something has showed up. And there's also other gods from the game of Genshin Impact that have came to reality. Some like Morax, god of Geo and Contracts, minor god of Earth. The difference between Geo and Earth is, they're very similar, but Geo is referring to something like rocks and having some control over it. But with Earth, you have near complete control over it. Like ranging from simple dirt, sand, all the way up to titanium and stuff like that. But with Aether, due to him having other elements under his control, he has complete control over every element you can think of. And also, he also has the ability to switch between them and use them at the same time. But he also has an ability called an elemental burst. Well, all of these gods do, and his blessing is, like I said, you can either get one or multiple. Most common is at least one or two abilities, but some people I've heard of have gotten all 7 elements. And trust me, he's very powerful, but unlike most other gods, most other gods, I mean, he doesn't have the ability to control time that well. He can control the flow of time on himself pretty easily by shifting his age, and also mind control over time. He can really only make it go back a day or forward a day or so, at most a week. But trust me, when he's adventuring, time really flies for him. You can mostly see him just going around and looking around. This final one is actually a god that is this from the same pantheon as the Creeper, known as Gast. Gast is, in short, a very short god. He's very big, but what I mean by short, I'm talking about his title. Gast, major god of explosions, monsters, and rocks. Minor god of fireballs, fire, flight, and the nether. The nether is pretty much, think of, for the record, there's multiple different layers according to this pantheon. Each pantheon has its own rules of reality, for the record. So you can have multiple blessings from multiple gods of that pantheon, but it's very tricky to get blessings from other gods from other pantheons. But his blessing more or less gives you the ability to cast a fireball whenever you want. But the downside is the fact that you will become a demigod late after you die. And his demigods are resembling that of big, giant creatures with tentacles. But sometimes they gain more of a humanoid appearance like he does. He's mostly known to show up in a ginormous titanic form that is a giant head that looks like it's crying, and with tentacles at the bottom. But whenever you get too close, it opens its eyes and are bloodshot red, and his mouth opens up to reveal a blazing inferno. But that's just his face. His true size is much larger. His head in that form is pretty large, only around 100 feet. But he has the ability to cast multiple fireballs, for the record. You can really hit these balls back at him, which will injure him. Oh, driving him off if you ever have to fight him. For the record, fighting God is quite common for this time. But I still don't know what caused all these gods to appear so suddenly. But I've heard rumors of a god known as an overseer in this world. It's probably nothing. Back to Gast. His abilities are... Well, back to Gast time. Sorry, back to Gast. Ugh, I can't remember. Like I was saying, his abilities are pretty numerous. Being able to control make fireballs, explosions, but in his monsters, he has mind control over all monsters. It's not, but by monsters, it's referring to his own kind of monsters he creates. And he can only control rocks, and what I mean is like loose earth, like compressed rocks you can find on the ground. But here's the thing, he can also alter their density and size, and also make them explosive. So there's that. And that's all for today. Well, I hope you enjoyed his video, because that's all the time I got for today. Until next time, subscribe today, do not Spikers Dummy or Demas Alliance. Goodbye and peace out, everyone.